911, what's your emergency?
A woman is sobbing uncontrollably. Her voice is trembling, terrified.
My husband, he's in the pool with the crocodiles. They're attacking him. There's so much blood. Please hurry.
The operator tries to calm her down, but in the background you can hear it. The sound of splashing, snapping jaws. A man screaming in agony. Then, silence. By the time officers arrived at the quiet suburban home in Cape Coral, Florida, the only thing left floating in the water was a bloodied smartwatch. The pool was red. The air smelled like raw meat. One first responder threw up in the bushes. What kind of man keeps crocodiles in his living room pool? What really happened in that house? And what made 4 animals turn on the man who raised them, since they were hatchlings? Stay with me, because what you're about to hear will make you question everything you thought you knew about wild animals' loyalty and the boundaries between man and beast. And if you're someone who believes animals deserve stories just like people do, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Here at Animal Story, we bring you the most intense, emotional, and unbelievable real-life tales from the animal world. Stories that will make you cry, question, and remember. So make sure you're with us every week. Now back to our story. His name was Ethan Cole. He wasn't some reckless backyard zookeeper. He was a former marine biologist with a degree from the University of Florida. He had spent years working in animal rehabilitation programs and wildlife rescue. By all accounts, he loved animals more than people, especially reptiles. Cold-blooded creatures didn't scare him, they comforted him. Ethan was well known in the local community. If you had a gator problem on your property, you called Ethan. If a snapping turtle showed up on your driveway, Ethan would show up in cargo shorts and a calm smile. And when Hurricane Ida hit and flooded the neighborhood, Ethan rescued 2 baby crocs from a roadside ditch. That's where it all started. First 2, then 3. Then a 4th one that he bought legally from a permitted reptile breeder. He named them Bitey Luna Ghost and Rex. Instead of placing them in a sanctuary or a zoo, Ethan decided to raise them himself. He converted his indoor pool into a full-time tropical enclosure complete with heating lamps, artificial river rocks, a water filtration system, and even fake mangrove roots. At first, people thought he was crazy. But then the videos started going. Viral. Ethan swimming laps with Ghost gently nuzzling Bitey's snout, feeding them raw chicken with tongs. He had over 400,000 followers across social platforms. They called him the Croc Whisperer. He gave his crocodiles birthdays Christmas stockings and hand-fed them beef liver from Whole Foods. His wife Julia supported him, quietly, cautiously. She was proud of her husband's devotion, but often said the same thing to friends at church. They're not puppies. They're still wild. But Ethan believed otherwise. He had trained them, bonded with them, raised them from the size of his forearm. They know me, he once said on a podcast. They love me. They would never hurt me. He was wrong. In the days before his birthday, Ethan told his wife he wanted to live stream a full swim session with all 4 crocodiles at once. No barriers, no tools, just trust. That live stream never happened. Because on that morning, Julia walked into the pool room with a cup of coffee and saw a nightmare unfolding. She never forgot what she saw, and she never forgave herself for not stopping him sooner. Ethan Cole was 42 when he died, but for those who knew him, he still carried the spirit of a much younger man, wide-eyed, endlessly curious, and completely captivated by the animal world. He grew up in Naples, Florida, surrounded by marshes and swamps. While other kids were catching footballs, Ethan was catching frogs. He didn't go to prom. He went to wildlife rescue volunteer shifts. He was that kid, the one who stayed behind to save a snake stuck in the school's drainage pipe, the one who once got detention for skipping class to relocate a baby raccoon. Animals made sense to him in a way people never quite did. After graduating with a degree in marine biology, he worked at several coastal research centers and even spent 2 years helping with gator conservation in Louisiana. That's where he fell in love with reptiles, the misunderstood ones, the ones that scared everyone else. But life took a cruel turn when Ethan and his wife Julia lost their only son Caleb in a boating accident when he was just 8 years old. Ethan changed after that. He stopped working, stopped talking to friends. The laughter that once filled their home faded into silence. Julia said it was like watching someone slowly vanish. Then one day, during a storm cleanup after Hurricane Ida, Ethan found a baby crocodile struggling in a flooded ditch behind their neighborhood. Small, wet, trembling. He brought it home, and something shifted. He named it Bitey, half-jokingly. 2 weeks later, he rescued another hatchling, Luna. And then came Rex and Ghost, the quiet one who rarely moved but never blinked. Ethan poured his grief into those animals, built them a life, fed them by hand, cleaned their water, talked to them like they were children. He said they listened better than most people did. Julia didn't understand it, but she recognized the look in his eyes. They were his way back, to the world, she later said. They gave him something to wake up for. Soon, Ethan wasn't just surviving. He was living again. He transformed their indoor pool into a makeshift enclosure with heat lamps and tropical decor. He posted videos. At first, just a few hundred views, then thousands, then millions. One clip of him gently stroking Ghost's snout while explaining crocodilian memory went viral on TikTok. Another video of Luna doing a tail twist trick on command hit over 8 million views. He called them his scaly babies. Viewers called him a genius. Sponsors reached out. Animal lovers flocked to his page for updates. Even school teachers asked if he'd do virtual presentations, but not everyone cheered him on. Some neighbors kept their distance. One anonymous HOA complaint accused him of keeping dangerous exotic animals. A few reptile experts criticized him publicly, warning about false safety perceptions and unpredictable behavior. Ethan brushed it off. "They're my family," he said in one live stream. "They're not wild anymore. They know me." He wasn't trying to be famous. He was trying to find purpose, redemption, peace. Friends said his obsession with the crocs wasn't about ego. It was about healing. In a world that had taken so much from him, those animals gave something back: structure, meaning, connection. But connection has limits. And wild stays wild. Ethan didn't see that. Julia did. She often sat just outside the pool room, listening to the splashes and growls while folding laundry. She'd ask him every so often, "You sure they're still safe?" He'd just smile and say, "I trust them. I trust them with my life." And in the end, he did. By the end of that summer, something had changed. At first, it was small, subtle, the kind of thing only someone like Ethan would even notice. Ghost, the quiet one, started circling more aggressively. Luna, usually the most affectionate, stopped responding to hand signals. Bitey snapped at the feeding tongs, missing by inches and clamping down on the metal hard enough to bend it. Ethan told Julia it was just a phase. "They're growing, hormonal shifts, like teenagers," he laughed. But the laughter didn't reach his eyes. One afternoon, during a scheduled cleaning, Rex lunged. No warning, no growl, just raw muscle and instinct. He didn't bite Ethan, but he hit him with his tail so hard it knocked him against the wall. Julia begged him to call someone: a vet, a herpetologist, a zoo consultant. Anyone, but Ethan waved it off. "He's just stressed. The heat's been rough. I'll tweak the filtration schedule. It's nothing." But it wasn't nothing. Neighbors started to notice strange things, too. The house always had a low, swampy odor, loud splashes at night, shadows moving behind the thick glass panels that separated the pool room from the rest of the house. A child visiting from next door came home crying, saying she saw a monster in the water through the window. Then came the missing dog. It belonged to the Petersons down the street. A fluffy little spaniel named Muffin that had slipped out. Through an open gate, posters went up, Facebook posts were shared. Julia helped search for it for days. 3 weeks later, Julia found a soaked pink collar behind the exterior drainage vent. She didn't say anything to Ethan. She couldn't. She was too far in, too proud, too sure of the connection he thought he had with those animals. The final red flag came in the form of a letter. Certified. From the Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission. Someone had filed a complaint. They were requesting an inspection of the home and the conditions in which the crocodiles were kept. If any violations were found, Ethan could lose his animals or face criminal charges. Julia thought maybe this would be the wake-up call he needed. But Ethan didn't see it that way. "They're trying to tear my family apart," he snapped. "I'm not giving them up, not after everything." That night, he stayed in the pool room until 3 a.m., just him and the crocs, the water glowing pale blue from the overhead lights, a camera recording, a beer sweating in his hand. The next morning, he took down the safety gates. He removed the steel fencing that separated the walkway from the water's edge. He said it was a gesture of trust. "They need to feel that I believe in them," he told Julia. "No barriers, no fear, just faith." Julia didn't argue, not anymore. She knew she couldn't stop him, but something inside her shifted. She started sleeping with the bedroom door locked, and she began keeping her car keys on the nightstand. That weekend, Ethan made a post on his channel. "Swimming with my crocs. No barriers." It was meant to go live on his birthday, a celebration of his bond, a show of fearlessness. But the video was never filmed. Because 3 days before that birthday, on a quiet Saturday morning, everything he believed about those animals shattered in a single blood-soaked minute. It was supposed to be a quiet morning. The Florida sun had just started to rise, casting gold across the neighborhood lawns. Julia was in the kitchen pouring coffee, still in her robe, the house humming with the low rhythm of the pool filtration system. Ethan had gotten up early. He said he wanted to feed the crocs before the heat really kicked in. He always fed them. First. Before emails. Before breakfast. Before anything. Julia heard the glass door slide open, followed by the soft slosh of water. She didn't think twice. Just another morning with Ethan and his babies. But what came next, she would replay for the rest of her life. At first, there was nothing. Then a loud splash, then another, and then something else, a sound she had never heard from him before, a scream. It wasn't a yell of surprise. It wasn't a call for help. It was raw, guttural, the kind of sound that makes your bones turn cold. Julia dropped her coffee and ran barefoot toward the pool room. The moment she opened the door, she froze. There was water everywhere. Thrashing, roaring, blood already in the shallow end, swirling with chlorine foam. Ethan was in the center of the chaos, waist deep, screaming and trying to fight off Ghost, who had latched onto his arm and was twisting violently. The other crocodiles were circling. "Get back!" Julia screamed, grabbing a pool net and swinging. It at the water. It snapped in half. She tried throwing anything she could, towels, a broom, a folding chair. It was useless. Luna lunged from the side and bit into Ethan's leg. He collapsed, half submerged, struggling to keep his head above water. Bitey came next, snapping at his chest. There was no strategy in their attack. It wasn't defensive. It wasn't confusion. It was coordinated. They had waited, watched, and struck as a pack. Julia tried to get to him, but Rex slammed into the pool's edge, splashing water up and nearly knocking her back. Her bare feet slipped on the soaked tile. She fell hard, hitting her hip. Ethan's voice broke mid-scream. Then silence. Only splashes, snaps, the sound of jaws and bones. Julia crawled backward, dragging herself to the hallway, fumbling for her. Phone with shaking hands. She dialed 911. My husband, please, they're killing him. The crocodiles, he's still in the pool." She couldn't finish the sentence. When first responders arrived less than 6 minutes later, they had to break down the front door. Julia had locked herself in the bathroom and couldn't move. What they found inside haunted them for weeks. The water in the pool was red. Ethan was nowhere to be seen, just scraps of fabric, one running shoe, and a shattered GoPro still blinking near the edge of the pool. One of the crocodiles, Ghost, was floating calmly beneath the surface, as if nothing had happened. It took tranquilizer darts and a full hazmat team to retrieve the animals. Ethan's body was recovered in pieces. His smartwatch, still wrapped around the stump of his left wrist, was the last thing pulled from the water. The indoor pool that had once been filled with laughter, training sessions, and viral videos had become a scene of horror. Not just a tragedy, but a reckoning. The man who trusted them completely had been consumed by the very creatures he called family. Ethan Cole was pronounced dead at the scene, though by the time the coroner arrived, there wasn't much left to pronounce. His death certificate listed multiple traumatic injuries due to animal attack as the official cause. But those words didn't come close to describing what had happened inside that house. The crocodiles, Ghost, Bitey, Luna, and Rex, were sedated and transported by Florida wildlife authorities. Within 72 hours, all four were euthanized under public safety protocols. Julia never got to say goodbye, not to Ethan, not to the animals. Everything was gone by the time she was released from the hospital, bruised, exhausted, emotionally shattered. The story exploded online. Florida man mauled by his own crocodiles was plastered across every major news site. Networks ran segments with flashing headlines. TikTok was flooded with re-uploads of Ethan's old videos, now viewed through a new, horrifying lens. In one clip, Ethan gently cradles Ghost's head in his arms. "He trusts me," he says, smiling. At the camera. That video hit 12 million views in 2 days. Some commenters mourned him. "This is heartbreaking. He loved them so much. He didn't deserve this." Others were brutal. "Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Why would anyone keep crocodiles in their house?" Those animals didn't snap. They remembered. Animal rights groups spoke out. Some defended Ethan, saying he treated the animals better than many zoos. Others used the story to campaign for stricter laws on exotic pet ownership. The state of Florida announced a full investigation into how Ethan had been allowed to keep 4 adult crocodiles in a residential neighborhood, despite being technically licensed. An old clip of a local news segment resurfaced, where a reptile expert warned, "These animals don't belong in pools. They don't bond with humans. They only tolerate us." That clip became a meme. Julia, for her part, stayed quiet. For weeks, she didn't speak to the media. She didn't post online. She didn't leave the house, aside from going to the funeral home to sign papers and pick up a small wooden box with Ethan's name carved into it. There was no public service. Instead, she organized a private memorial with a few close friends and family. They gathered in the backyard under the mango tree Ethan had planted after Caleb's death. Julia didn't give a speech. She couldn't. But she placed a photo on the table. One of Ethan sitting by the pool, holding Luna as a hatchling, a tired smile on his face, eyes full of something both broken and beautiful. A few weeks later, she finally gave a short interview to a local paper. "I don't hate the animals," she said. "They were just being what they are. But I do hate what we turned them into." The article ended with a quiet line that struck a chord with many. He thought love was enough to tame the wild. But the wild never asked to be tamed. Online, people continued to debate. Some called for laws banning private ownership of dangerous animals altogether. Others argued that Ethan's story was a tragedy, not a cautionary tale. Julia just wanted peace. But peace didn't come easily. A petition called the Cole Act gained traction, aimed at banning crocodilians as household pets in the state of Florida. It quickly gathered over 250,000 signatures. Several lawmakers voiced support. Julia didn't lead the charge. She didn't have to. Ethan's story had already become bigger than either of them. And as she sat alone one night, flipping through old videos on his channel, watching him laugh, watching Ghost nudge his hand in the water, she whispered the words she never got to say in time. "I'm sorry." 6 months after Ethan Cole's death, the Florida legislature passed a bill known as the Cole Act, a law that made it illegal for any private citizen to own or house crocodilians within a residential zone. It passed nearly unanimously. The sponsors of the bill cited Ethan's case as the breaking point. Ethan wasn't a criminal, one lawmaker said during a press conference. He was a man who loved too deeply and underestimated what wild really means. Across the country, conversations erupted. On talk shows, in classrooms, on message boards. People were no longer just talking about one man and 4 crocodiles. They were talking about the bigger question: where's the line between compassion and control? Julia didn't attend the signing of the law. She watched it on TV, sitting alone in the den, clutching a throw pillow Ethan once used as a knee pad when he'd kneel to scrub the pool tiles. She still lived in the same house. The pool had been drained and sealed. The room was empty now, just concrete and echoes. But sometimes, late at night, she swore she could still hear the water ripple. In the months that followed, a nonprofit was founded in Ethan's name, the Ethan Cole Wildlife Trust. Its mission wasn't just to protect people from animals. It was to protect animals from people who think they know better. They fund sanctuary relocation programs. They work with former exotic pet owners. They host seminars for teens interested in working with wildlife, and on the homepage of their website is a single quote from Ethan himself, taken from an old interview. "I don't own them, I live beside them." It's a beautiful sentiment. And a dangerous one, because nature doesn't care about sentiment. Wild isn't evil, but it's not tame either. One of the last videos on Ethan's YouTube channel still makes the rounds on Reddit and animal forums. It's just a 30-second clip. No tricks, no voiceover. Just Ethan floating on his back in the pool, the sun, coming in through the glass ceiling, and 4 crocodiles drifting silently around him. He's smiling, eyes closed, arms stretched out, and Ghost, his favorite, just beneath the surface, watching him. Every few months, someone new finds that clip and posts it with the caption, "Was this beautiful or a countdown?" We don't show that clip here, not out of disrespect, but out of care. Because stories like this aren't entertainment. They're warnings wrapped in love stories. They're about how far people go to feel connected and what we're willing to risk to hold on to that feeling. So here's the question we ask you now. Do you think love is enough to tame the wild? Think about it. Would you raise a predator in your home just because it once curled up in your lap? Would you ignore the instincts that have kept it alive for millions of years? Would you look into those ancient eyes and believe it would never turn on? Ethan did. And he's not the only one. Across the country, in apartments and backyards and basements, people are keeping wild animals as companions. Sometimes it ends in a cuddle, sometimes in a catastrophe. That's not to say Ethan deserved what happened. He didn't. He was smart, passionate, loving. But in the end, he confused coexistence with control, and that mistake cost him everything. So the next time you see a viral video of someone cuddling a lion, hugging a bear, or swimming with a crocodile, don't. Just ask how they did it. Ask why they thought they could. Now it's your turn. What do you think? Was Ethan brave or blind? Could this tragedy have been prevented? Tell us in the comments. And if stories like this move you, subscribe to Animal Story, where we honor the bond between humans and animals, even when it breaks our hearts. Let's remember Ethan Cole, not for how he died, but for what he tried to do. And let's make sure no one else has to learn the hard way, that some things were never meant to be tamed.